Hello everybody and welcome to our first team review preview before the season. We're going to be starting off with Arsenal. We're going to go through and do all 20 Premier League teams and review their transfer window and how we think they're going to do this season. I'm with Rafe in this episode. I'm going to be with him for the majority of the future videos. So we're going to start off by reviewing Arsenal. Do you want to do transfers first, or do you want to have a look at how they did last season?
I think maybe start from last season and see what we think they should have improved from.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
as we know, they came second.
Sorry. I say hi, guys. Good to be back. There's a long absence, but
yeah, it's been about 2 years. We're going to be coming back consistent for this season. There's a lot of football on, a lot of stuff to cover. So we're going to start now. Obviously, we said last season they finished second. Very good challenges to Man City last season, but obviously Man City too strong in the end. Where were they lacking to win the league?
I think at the end of the day it all comes down to a bit of inexperience being in that position. Obviously, young coach. He did learn a lot from Pep, which is clear, but I think it's more to do with them having one of the youngest squads in the league. Although that got them to that position, they kind of almost bottled under the pressure. But I wouldn't say it's a bad thing because they did put up a very good fight, which no one thought they would.
No, that's true. A lot of people had written them off at the start.
And they do have a really exciting team, really, for this upcoming season, which we'll talk about. I believe what they lacked.
Yeah, I believe what they lacked was depth, because it was the injuries that killed them at the end. Which brings us on to the signings. So, looking at the depth, we're going to start off by looking at Jurgen Timber, one of their most recent signings of the window. They did a lot of their business early on and concluded it quite early on, even though they are interested in a few more people, but no strong interest. We'll get into that later. But we'll start with Jurgen Timber. The main reason they couldn't keep the spot last season was obviously Saliba got injured at the end, their key centre back, and they lacked no depth at the back at all. So they leaked a lot of goals, so they've gone and signed Timber. But obviously that's now quite irrelevant as he's been injured for the season. So what do we think of this signing?
Well, I was a massive fan of the signing. I think he's proven for a consistent amount of years at Ajax that he is capable of playing in this league. And obviously we've seen plenty of his teammates in a similar position make the step up to the Premier League after coming from playing under Ten Hag. But yeah, it's a real shame, really. I think he looked very promising on his debut.
He did.
Came off injured in around the 60th minute. But yeah, I think he'll be a massive miss this season. I don't think it's the end of the world. I still think there's other positions Arsenal should target before a right back.
Mm-hmm.
They still have Tomiyasu and Ben White who can play there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a massive miss, especially for such a big side.
Yeah, I mean they got him for a really good price as well, 40 million.
Yeah.
Which, looking at some of their other signings, I think they've overpaid quite a bit. But Timber, as a value, very good signing. I'd probably rate that one of the best signings of the window if he didn't get injured, because I think he would adapt to the Premier League really well. But unfortunately he's injured and we'll have to wait until next season to see what he does. Still got Gabriel and Saliba at the back in the end, and Pablo Mari's come back from loan. I mean, he's not good depth, but at the end of the day it is depth. And as you say, Ben White can play right back, so yeah. We'll move on from Timber.
On to one of It did. I just had to say, it did bring me on to one of the rumours. Well, it's not really a concrete rumour, but one I think they could target if they were to replace him. As being a Southampton fan, I hate to say it, but I think Carl Walker-Peters would be a very capable solution for Arsenal.
Yeah.
He's obviously Phil homegrown status, and wouldn't cost north of 20 mil.
No. And I do think he'd be a starting right back for Southampton for Arsenal at the moment because, as you're saying, in the first game of the season, Ben White started at centre back and he did a really good job. It looks like they're trying to move him more to the middle, and he was more of a makeshift right back instead of them actually turning him into that position. So
yeah,
probably would end up being a good
that
signing.
versatility in him, but I hope it doesn't go through. But I think it would be a very good solution for the problem they have if they felt like they needed to address it at some point.
Well, but I'd just like to quickly read out their expenditure for this window because, as we mentioned, Timber was a very cheap signing in consideration. So the market value of the signings they've made is 294 million euros, but they have only spent 234 million. But as you know, nowadays market value is not that important at all. It's the value of the club to the player. And the average age of the signings is 25, which does suit with Arsenal really well. Obviously, they've got a young, promising team. And then the big issue is, though, they've sold £34 million worth of players, but the players they've sold are valued at 63 million. So they've sold for half the value of the players. And some of them I think they could have gotten a bit more for. And one of them, which I'm going to move on to now, was a key player for Arsenal last season. And I'm quite surprised in the way they've done the transfers around this man. Granit Xhaka. Now, he was the Arsenal captain last season for most part. Obviously, Ødegaard's taken the armband now, I think. But yeah, for the majority of last season, Xhaka has been the captain. And he became really good last season. I think he probably had his best season in Arsenal shirt. The story with Xhaka's strange because obviously he joined the club and then he was doing well. Then he got the captain. He had it stripped off him when he was dropped. But obviously last season he's come back. He's done really well, and they've now sold him on. Which is a very strange one.
It's a weird one, but obviously he was going back to the club where he kind of made his name in Leverkusen. I do think he's a massive loss in that Arsenal midfielder, especially with Partey's injury record. I do think that's a position they do maybe. Obviously, they got Declan Rice now to replace him.
We keep forgetting, which is, in my opinion, the most pointless signing of the year. They've got Jorginho as well.
They do.
Which means Xhaka would have made for the holding midfielders. That is obviously why they've sold him. But considering the season he's had, 15 million euros is not enough for how good he was. And I think Xhaka's a better player than Jorginho as well. So I think he's such a pointless signing. And knowing that we're going to bring in Rice in the summer anyway, it's just completely pointless.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Rice is a really big signing. He's one of the best defensive midfielders in the country. Obviously, he's homegrown. Also, still very young in his career, and he has shown very key leadership roles at West Ham. He captaining them to their first ever European victory, really. In the Conference League last season. So I think they have got a very good replacement in Rice.
Yeah, very solid in the England shirt as well. He's proved he can play with good players and in a good environment. But
I do think he's an upgrade though. Obviously Xhaka's grasp of the squad and like the influence he has and that team will be missed. But I think Rice, especially once he gets more settled, will prove to be. I don't think he'll justify his price tag. But
Yeah.
then again, if he stays there for the next, 8-10 years,
Yeah, exactly.
wins some trophies, it'll prove to be a very good signing, especially in terms of how expensive players are now.
And we also know they've got a lot of players who can play holding midfield, and we know they have a bit of a centre-back depth problem, and Rice can fill in at centre-back if they need to this season, and they've got players to cover his holding midfield position.
Yeah, I am excited about Arsenal's midfield. I think it is.
I love Odegaard. I really rate him. I think Rice is one of the most solid players on the pitch. You'll never see him make a mistake. He's very solid. He won't do anything flashy or special, but he's just a rock solid CDM you can rely on, which is what you need. High price tag, but nowadays you pay for the value of the player at the club, and he was very, very valuable to West Ham. So not a bad signing. We'll see how he does this season. I think he'll do quite. I can't see him putting a foot wrong really. But they're doing it again where they're signing one level below Man City, which they don't really have an option. They've gone out and signed the best defensive midfielder they can get on the market, but yet he's just not as good as Rodri. No one is.
I think obviously he's younger than Rodri,
Yeah.
so he does have the years on him. And I think playing under Arteta for a few years, as we've seen the influence Arteta has had on these young players,
100%.
He'll definitely be a really valuable asset to Arsenal, and I'm excited to see him play more.
Me too.
But yeah, I think in the end, Xhaka leaving was justified. He almost went down as a club, probably not the level of a club legend due to his controversies before, but he was there for 7 years, and as you said, in his last season, almost captained them to a Premier League title win, which no one expected. But yeah,
they've got a solid midfield, and talking about the midfield, we're going to move on to a man who is a midfielder and a striker in Kai Havertz. Now, what was the 65 million was the fee? I think
it was.
75 million euros was the fee, which is actually more than Chelsea bought him for. So
I'm not a fan of this transfer.
Neither am I, because he's just another man who will come back to Havertz quickly, but I want to quickly bring up Jesus, who, what they've done is they've signed essentially a false nine who can't finish again. Which, Jesus and Havertz are quite different players, but at the end of the day, they both play in the hole in between the 10 and the striker, and none of them can finish properly. But
I think with Jesus, I think what he has in Havertz is he gets into these positions a lot during games, which obviously we saw last season. He did score quite a lot of goals for Arsenal. He wasn't particularly clinical, but he got into positions where he would score several times during a match.
Yeah, he did.
I don't think the season on 11 goals with only 24 starts. I mean,
it's not bad.
You'd want more out of the striker if you're challenging for the league, especially with City's Haaland. Obviously, you can't match him.
Yeah,
but you want at least a 20-goal striker.
As you say, 11 goals in 24, still more than this man scored. He was playing in solely as the number 9.
Yeah, you'd also if I was Arsenal right now, you'd be hoping you still had Aubameyang, really.
Yeah.
You'd want that kind of striker.
Yeah, you would.
I know they're trying to play in this false 9 system.
You say that first game we've seen with him, obviously the first game of the season's over now. He did play in the 8 next to Odegaard. And Nketiah started up front and actually did a very good job.
I think Nketiah did well, but I don't think Nketiah as they say, if you want to challenge for the league, you can't have Nketiah as your main striker with Jesus' injury records. I mean, it's shown by last season. I mean, only 9 of them being starts, but 30 appearances and 4 goals. It's
the worst part is he was putting up top for most of them appearances as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a bad player.
The thing is, he's got a lot of ability about him. He's actually got really good footwork. He's strong, obviously. He's got a powerful strike. It's just not very accurate. He's fast. He's really good physically, and he's got a good work rate about him as well, which is why I'm not saying he'll do well in midfield, but I don't know if he'll do bad. I'm just really interested to see how he does this season in that role given him.
Yeah, it's almost. I mean, obviously, if he starts a lot of games this season, it'll be good for him.
Yeah.
But if he's going to continue to be back up, which he will when Jesus is back, and I don't know whether Arteta will trust Havertz as the false 9.
But I don't think he will.
I'd want to see him at a club like Brighton.
Arteta likes playing with a getting behind striker, and he's not that.
No.
So overall, Arsenal have had a mixed transfer window, we'll say. Spent a lot. They've actually got the highest net spend in the league. So we'll read it out as we go down every team throughout the Premier League season. But Arsenal's net spend of 200 million is the highest in the league, technically.
We're also forgetting the other big transfer, which they've just made. Only just been confirmed, really, as we're recording this video, but David Raya from Brentford.
Yeah, David Raya. Completely forgot about that. We'll have a quick mention of this, and then we'll give our predictions for Arsenal for the season. So, Raya. For starters, quick thought. I'm pretty sure we've both got the same answer for this. Better than Ramsdale, yeah?
I think he is a big upgrade on Ramsdale.
Yeah, 100%. The stats back it up. He's much better on the ball, obviously. He's the best keeper in the league on the ball, bar Edison, which is again that point of Arsenal always being one step behind City. But there's nothing more you can do. But as well as being very, very good on the ball, he's also got one of the highest save percentages in the league last season. And Ramsdale actually made the most mistakes leading to goals last season. So, huge upgrade. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get any game time. I think Ramsdale's set as the number 1, even though Raya's a lot better.
I think it's a weird move from both Raya and Arsenal. Obviously, they've just sold Turner to Forest. He was their number 2 goalkeeper.
And he was a good number 2 to have.
But I think either way, having Raya or Ramsdale as your number 2 is just ridiculous. If you're going to sign Raya, move Ramsdale on. He's too good to be a number 2.
He is. They both are.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me. I hope he gets games because he's a brilliant goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And he's at almost not for a goalkeeper per se, but 27. He's not really young anymore. He's so he'd really want to be playing as much as possible his career right now.
Anyway, let's give our predictions quickly. Obviously, we've seen the first game of the season. We've seen how Arsenal started the play and how they've lined up. Where do you think they're going to finish in the league this season?
I think they could finish anywhere inside the top 4. I do still think they're a lot stronger than Tottenham. And although after Newcastle's brilliant start, 5-1 win over another team people thought could be challenging, and Villa, I don't think Newcastle have really addressed their depth.
No.
So I still think Arsenal are stronger than Newcastle. But yeah, I'd probably put them down as 3rd. I think it'll be between them and Chelsea. Chelsea and United, I think, could finish anywhere inside the top 4. I think that will be the top 4 though.
Yeah. I agree.
Obviously, it depends on business at the end of the window. We're only on the 15th of August, whilst recording this.
Yeah. So
there is still plenty of time.
Plenty of time to go. I agree with that. And I've got a lot more points to say about Newcastle Villa, but Aston Villa is next anyway, so just watch that and I'll explain everything I've got to say about that game there, because I think there was good reason that Villa lost that game. But yeah, thanks for watching our first episode of Arsenal season preview. Any Arsenal fans there, let us know what you think about what we've said, or your signings, or anything like that, or any other teams coming up. Give us any rumours you've seen about your team. We'll try and get them into the video. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the Aston Villa one.